I got my period when I was 12 years old. And if you're thinking, whoa, TMI, yes, it is. And yes, I absolutely am. So 12 years old, I get my period. Fast forward a year. Now I'm 13 and it's summertime. I am suddenly, without warning, doubled over with excruciating pain. Pain like I have never felt before. And bear in mind, all of those periods that I got in that 1 year were terrible. They were so heavy, it was ridiculous. And the cramps were next level. This pain though, it's in my pelvic area and it is unbearable. So I yell out for my mom. My mom comes into the room, sees me, for the first time ever in my life, in my 13 years on earth, does not say to me, you better be dying if, yeah, she just took me to the hospital. So we go to the emergency room and the doctor walks in, checks me out. Now I'm not in excruciating pain anymore. For whatever reason, the pain has faded. It still hurts, but it's not like I'm being stabbed with a samurai sword. The doctor checks me out, presses on things, and says to my mother, you know, she's only had her period for a year. She probably just doesn't realize that this is how cramps feel. Sometimes they're very, very bad. Really? Really? Okay. So my mother tries to explain to him, no, Daisy she's not dramatic that way. She wouldn't be doubled over and make me bring her to the hospital if it didn't feel like she was dying, which is absolutely true. But he writes it off and sends me home. Doesn't even give me like Tylenol with codeine, nothing. Just sends me home. So honestly, the pain has abated to the point where I'm like, oh, God, maybe did I imagine how horrible it was? Did I make a big deal out of nothing? Now I'm thinking, am I dramatic? Next night, I wake up screaming in pain. There are no words for this level of pain. I can't walk. I can't even stand up. So I drag myself off the bed and I grab some shoes that are on the floor because I'm a teenager and my room is gross. I pick them up and I just start chucking them at the wall because my mom's room is next door. She does wake up. She comes into my room and I'm screaming. I'm screaming, oh my God, I can't bear it. I can't bear it. I can't bear it. So my teeny tiny little mother somehow half drags me to the car and we go back to the emergency room. Okay? Different doctor this time. Doctor says, you know, she's only had her period for a year. She probably just doesn't understand that some women get terrible cramps. This time my mom makes a bigger, like she's like, no, there is something very, very wrong and I need you to figure out what it is. So he pokes and, you know, and he says, he asks me repeatedly, which side is the pain on? And I repeatedly tell him which side it is. And so he says, the only thing I could possibly think of is that it's appendicitis. Yeah, except that this is on the opposite side of my body that has the appendix. The pain is on the opposite side. So he tells my mother, let's just rule out appendicitis. So tells her, I have to do an exam and I'm going to put a graphic up for you about how that exam is performed. Because I don't even want to say it. TMI, love. This is just too much. And bear in mind, when you're looking at this graphic, I'm a 13-year-old girl. I've never kissed a boy. I don't know that at that point I'd ever had a conversation with a boy. And there's a grown man doing this to me. It was shocking. It was awful. It was truly horrible. And afterwards, he says, well, it's not appendicitis. Really? Really, doctor? Is it not appendicitis? Okay, so he says, you know, basically he's convinced that I'm just very dramatic. He does, however, send us home with some Tylenol with codeine. And I don't take them because the pain is bearable. until the next evening, when I wake up again screaming. I mean, it is just, I can't explain the pain unless, if you've had childbirth, if you've ever been in childbirth, I'm told it literally feels like that, like labor. Oh, look, look who came to visit. Oh, I love you. Okay, so emergency room, night 3. This is my 3rd time to the emergency room. And the pain is continuing this time. It didn't settle down. It's just continuing. And I am doing everything I can not to be screaming at the top of my lungs. A 3rd doctor. So we start from the beginning. And he says, let's rule out appendicitis. My mother says, isn't there like a chart on this somewhere? Last night, a doctor did that exam, and it wasn't appendicitis. And he says, well, you know what? A lot can change in 24 hours. Let's rule that out. Bearing in mind, again, it's on the wrong side of my body. But this man, who has been assumedly trained to be a physician, knows anatomy, understands what's in this part of my body, and has decided that the only possible 2 things it could be are I'm very dramatic and can't stand the pain of cramps, or it's appendicitis. There can't possibly be anything else in that area that it could be. So he performs the exam. And I have been, and I don't use this word lightly, I have now been violated twice by 2 different men. I'm 13. I'm sobbing between the pain and the humiliation of these exams. So he comes to the conclusion that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. He tells me to go ahead and take those drugs that the other doctor gave me the other night. This time, my tiny little mother loses her shit. Loses her shit. She said, no, my daughter, it does not make this up. She is not lying. She is not pretending. She's not faking. She is in pain, and you need to figure out what's happening. Doctor turns around and leaves the room. He doesn't tell us, have your daughter get dressed. There's nothing I can do. I'm going to get the pills on the way out. Nothing. He just leaves. So now we're wondering, are we supposed to just sit here? What is happening in this hospital? When a woman comes walking in, a nurse, and she's pushing a cart with a machine on it that has like a computer screen. And she says, hi, we're going to take an ultrasound. Okay, whatever. I'm in pain. I don't care what you're going to do. She breaks out the little fluid jelly stuff that goes on, on the stomach, and then she takes the, I don't know, it looks sort of like a wand, but it's got a flat on the end of it. And she gets the computer all ready, and she takes the little dealie, and she starts going up and down one side of my abdomen. And she's telling us, as she sees it, what it is she's seeing on the computer screen, what it is we're looking at. So she says, okay, now, that's your appendix, and it looks normal. Here's your ovary and your fallopian tube right there. Now let's just go over to the other side. Silence. And then she goes, huh. Yeah, I don't know what that meant, but it didn't sound good. Like if you're in the hospital and you're in agonizing pain, is better than go home with nothing, but it's not, doesn't sound great. So she says, you know what? I'm going to go get a doctor real quick. Doctor comes back in, same doctor, and he sits down at the same machine, and he's surprisingly telling us what he's seeing, but he starts on the other side where she finished. And so he takes a little dealie, he's doing this on my abdomen, he's looking at the screen, about to tell us, what he sees, but the screen is black. There's nothing on the screen, nothing. So he says, just a minute, asks the nurse, can you reset this real quick? And he's telling me, I think maybe there's something wrong with the machine. It's not showing me anything on this side of your abdomen. So we're just going to try it again. We're just going to start from scratch. Here we go. So takes the little wand. This is my abdomen. He's da-da-da-da-da. And the screen is just coming out black. Like blackish gray, like just nothing. There's nothing. And suddenly he goes, oh. And that, from that second on, it is all hands on deck. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Here we are. He leaves the room. The nurse is still there. The nurse is like, okay. She leaves the room. She comes rushing back in. We're going to prep her for emergency surgery. Okay. Okay, whatever. So they prep me for emergency surgery. And as it turns out, I have a somewhat rare blood type, so they have to knock me out to get the blood. So the blood is being helicoptered in. And in the meantime, my mother finds out what's going on. And it turns out that I have had a cyst growing on my ovary. And it got so big that when it ran out of room, it started to sort of twist on itself. Okay, so if your ovary is here and your tube is right there, what's happening is it's twisting like a rubber band around my fallopian tube. So basically it's killing off my fallopian tube. And every time it would turn a little, screaming unbearable pain. The rest of the time, just incredibly, awfully painful. So my mom goes to the nurse's station, and I forgot to leave out, I left out that she works for this hospital. Not in the actual hospital itself, but she works for a doctor, a different kind of doctor, off-site. But she spends all of her time with nurses and doctors, and she knows a few things. So she goes up to the nurse's station, and she says to them, hi, my daughter needs emergency surgery, and I know you've got a little time. Can you please tell me who the best pediatric surgeon is at this hospital? Because that's who I want. And they tell her, you're actually supposed to go through the doctor for that. And she says, yeah, I know doctors, and there's no point to me doing that. It's just going to draw it out. And I know who runs things in hospitals. That's why I'm here asking you. So, they get it. She gets it. They tell her, Dr. Kanchanapun, he's the absolute best. And she comes back and she tells me this. And I'm thinking, wow, like, I don't, like, she's advocating for me. I don't know. It was a very, I don't know, heartfelt is the word that comes to mind. That she was doing so much to make sure that I got the best possible care. Anywho, I have the surgery. Dr. Kanchanapun performs it. It went beautifully. And apparently I had like the most amazing, beautiful scar. Nurses would come in, other doctors came in to look at my scar because apparently it was so miraculously tiny and perfect. Yeah, so interesting. Here's the thing about the hospital. I was there for 4 days, which is, even back then, that's a long time to be in the hospital. Like, I had some invasive surgery. And with the exception of the time that Nurse Ratchet, my God, this woman, I thank her now because my recovery went so much better because of her. But damn, she was in on day 2. She made me sit up, swing my legs around, and stand up. The whole thing took like an hour because, oh my God, yeah, I was ripped from stem to stern. Well, from hip to hip, but you know what I mean. So I'm there for 4 days. In those 4 days, I am pretty much unable to lift a finger for myself, but even when I'm up and I'm walking down the halls with my IV and I can go to the bathroom by myself, I am being cared for. Like, the level of care I received was, I'd never experienced anything like that before. I always took care of myself. And when my mom needed it, I took care of her too. So this was, to me, this was heaven. This was 4 days of heaven. Heaven. When the nurses found out that I love to read, they brought me the whole bookmobile, like the whole kit and caboodle, wheeled it in, left it for me there. Like I was the bookmobile lived in my room. And if anybody wanted a book or wanted to read, they took it out. I got to read all day long when I wasn't sleeping. I had a television completely to myself with cable. Like that doesn't mean much to some of you, but cable back then, wow, like it was amazing. I had a remote. I had absolute complete control over whatever I wanted to watch on TV. It was heaven. 3 times a day, someone would come in and ask me what I wanted for my meal. And I just picked from a menu. Like, I know people complain about hospital food, but those people have not tasted my mother's cooking. Yeah, she was like a health food nut and, oh, yeah. Anyway, heaven. It was wonderful. And the nurses were in all the time. Now the nurses love my mom, and they loved me. They were so nice to me. They would just come in all the time and sit with me and help me with my like PT that I had to do. I had to blow into this tube that was attached to a thing that made a little bubble bounce up and down. Like just thinking about being cared for this way, whew, still makes me tear up. Anyway, so on day 4, it's around noon, and one of the nurses comes in, and she says to my mother, so everything's handled, and in an hour or so, we'll bring a wheelchair in, and you'll be officially discharged, and you can, we'll take her downstairs, and she can go home. And she turns to me and says, are you excited to go home? Or you must be excited to go home. And I burst into tears. And I don't mean like crying. I mean sobbing, racking, massive, just ridiculous level of sobbing, crying. And it hurt because I'm still like super, but I couldn't stop. I could not stop. I cried that entire hour. It finally settled down to just like, but I couldn't stop. And when the doctor came in to sign the paper that released me, and he said, when your body is under a tremendous amount of physical stress, it will eventually have to work itself out sometimes. And this does happen. But that isn't why I was crying. I was crying because for the first time in my entire life, 72 straight solid hours, not including like the actual surgery and the nurse ratchet, I was just cared for. I just had a team of people taking care of me. And I had never had that before. Whew. So I never told anybody why I was crying. Because I knew, like everybody here is like, obviously you can't wait to get out of the hospital. Nobody wants to stay in the hospital. Gross. Hospital food, gross. So I kept it to myself. And also it probably would have hurt my mom's feelings, which I'm not sure why that was that big a deal. But the point of this story is, if you are in a relationship with someone who's important to you, whether it's romantic or not, maybe it's a best friend or a whatever, and they are aggressively committed to doing everything themselves, be patient with that person and understand that need to do everything for everyone and yourself, that was born in childhood. And it's not easy to just let it go. Also, get that person into therapy, because your lives together will be very difficult if you don't do that. Anyway, so that's that story. And yeah, see you next time.